Great Giza Pyramid, knowledge of the ancients. Well, let's say they knew about brush discharge static electricity, something that we technically didn't discover until Faraday was there yanking on his rods. Anyway, they put a barrier at the 35th level to create a gap which would maintain the static electricity to the top of the structure, and they built the structure with a nice sweeping pattern which would pull the static electricity with a higher concentration to the upper area. Lack of top, quarantine that static electricity to the structure. They knew how to separate water into its two respective gases, with hydrogen coming out of the area they like to call the grotto, being piped up to the top of the king's chamber, where it builds up a pressure, comes down, and bubbles in between the hole in the back west north corner that is covered over by the piece of sheet metal now. Pictures of it, blah blah blah. It exists. You can deny it all you want. Up into the room, they knew about combusting those two together would create water, and that water then has water vapor, gases, and all that stuff, which condensate and come down. Down being buoyancy, down, as opposed to up. Hydrogen go up. Once it joins with water, once it joins with oxygen, becomes water, water vapor, steam, whatever, it comes back down. They knew that that would create a conduit and or pull the static electricity down into the system. The way that they have the walls with the ribs on it would allow all that condensation to drip, more pulling down into the system, and that by just the way nature works will pull it down into the system. They knew that they could concentrate it into one particular room, into the kind of the center of the structure, and that eventually that static electricity would look for the path of least resistance to ground. They knew that by providing a conduit and providing static electricity that path of least resistance, which would be as compared to the path out the other side, which would either go to dead ground, or at this time, I believe it actually went and shorted over to the, they like to call the Osiris shaft, which is the true ground. This particular one, I believe, shorted to the third pyramid on the structure through the conduits that litter the bottom of the Great Giza Pyramid. Plateau, the whole thing. It's like a big multi-layer circuit board. Anyway, the tech there was actually quite great, that they were able to harness the static electricity like a big Van de Graaff generator, but constantly being recharged by the ambient static electricity of the air being blown back and forth, static brush discharge, constantly being recharged, brought down into the system, and I believe utilized to do more than just be tapped, but that's because of the way the other structures are configured, and we'll get into that once this is modeled and actually functioning. They knew about the pressures of the water and how using a series of gates and pools within pools, they could bring the water level down but maintain the pressure, the ambient foot-pounds per pressure on the water to be greater, to lift the water in some way. It's like a bubble floating within a pool. I guess it'd be easier to actually, I'm going to model it one of these days. I'm actually going to get it to work. I'm going to find a little baby pool and play with this. Get some Fisher-Price toys or something of that nature. You know, a Fisher-Price flying saucer. All right, I'm babbling it now. But this is the tech that they were playing with. They understood condensation and how it pulled the static electricity down into the system. They knew that water could be separated into its respective gases. They knew that the oxygen, which would be coming up out of the system, can be pooled. You look at the bottom of it, it's got a pool, a tooth, stucco-y area, then you got the pre-subterranean chamber and the primary subterranean chamber. They knew that they could pool the waters, separate the gases, pool the gas, and when it bubbled around that edge, which was actually built like that, it would create a pressure which created a water hammer, which actually came through the system and did work. What it did, I don't know until we model it, but they were doing that for some reason. Don't know exactly why yet, but the system is in play. And they knew that they could get this done. Maybe they just wanted to hear, as John Cadman says, the heartbeat of the pyramid. Good thud, good thud, good thud. maybe that was a variable to make the water within the queen's chamber kind of have a ripple across the surface of it. Maybe that somehow had some sort of reaction, creating a wave. That wave might also play with the averages, and there may be more within the system, but don't really know until we model it. But the knowledge of what they did and how they played with this was it's a masterpiece, and I think it's greatly overlooked, and I wish people would pay more attention to it because it's a great structure. Thanks.